Thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Pint Podcast. Our show will start right after these messages from our sponsors.
Hey, Matt. We're thinking of selling our home and finding a bigger place.
Oh, really? I thought you guys loved where you lived.
Oh, we do. Our family is just growing. With pets. A dog, a cat, 2 guinea pigs, a hamster.
And you're planning on getting more?
Maybe a goat or a crocodile.
Well, I have the person for you. Kimmy Najad is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients.
We're just browsing now. I'm not sure if we really need a realtor yet.
Yeah, no worries. Kimmy can help you with the comparative market analysis to help you determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work at your pace.
Awesome. All right, I'll give her a shot. What's her phone number?
On Facebook, Kimmy Najad, Exit Realty Metro. Her phone number is 902-880-8429, and her email is kimia@exitmetro.ca.
902-880-8429. Awesome. Thanks.
This podcast was brought to you by Dan Lomas. That's LOMAS of lomasfinancial.ca.
Are you a small business owner who wants to keep more of your hard-earned profits and pay less taxes to the CRA? Do you want to plan for a comfortable and secure retirement? If your answer is yes, then you need to talk to Dan Lomas at Lomas Financial.
Dan Lomas is a financial advisor who has been helping successful entrepreneurs and business owners for over 2.5 decades. He utilizes customized solutions that can help you keep your earnings, dramatically reducing passive income tax.
Dan Lomas and his team will help you transition corporate wealth into personal wealth by utilizing customized executive pension plans. Dan will show you how to convert business wealth into personal wealth in a professional manner.
Don't let the CRA take more money than they deserve. Don't let your retirement dreams fade away. Contact Dan Lomas today and let him guide you on your path to financial success.
Visit Dan Lomas at lomasfinancial.ca or call him direct at 902-209-0855. That's 902-209-0855.
Cheers! Welcome to the Afternoon Pint. I'm Mike Tobin.
I am Matt Conrad.
And who the heck do we have with us today?
So my name's Andrew Comstock, and I am a social worker, and I work for Nova Scotia Health.
Are you here to see if he's all right?
I'm not being admitted, man. I'm doing all right. Is this
Right.
This is the jig's up? Is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not a medical person, so I don't know what you actually need. So
Okay,
we can
okay.
assess certain
Lots.
things, and I can connect you to my team if you need
All right.
anything.
All right. Well, no, I mean, you're actually here through a friend of the show, Lori.
Yeah.
She sat through one of your presentations.
Mm-hmm.
She thought it was something that a lot more people should know about. So she actually sent me and others your slideshow to kind of look through and this and that, and then kind of engineered the idea of you coming on this show. So thank you so much for coming on.
It's great. Well, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, like, honestly, when Mike brought it to me, he was like, hey, we're going to do this. I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Right.
That's probably
Yeah.
a good thing because
Yeah.
realistically, that's kind of your,
Most people
that's your
don't
job,
know
right?
what it is.
So,
That's
so
the
your
thing,
title
right?
is it
Yeah.
Advanced Care Planner?
Advanced Care Planning Facilitator. Is my
Facilitator.
title. It's kind of
Okay.
a mouthful.
So what is
Yeah.
Advanced Care Planning?
It's a really good question. So advanced care planning, and it's not advanced. So even in the medical system, you'll see it written as advanced, but it is advanced care planning. So it's just thinking about your medical and personal care wishes in advance.
Right.
If you're not able to speak for yourself, whenever that happens down the road, or if something bad happens to you and you're unconscious, you're not able to communicate your needs or what you want to medical professionals, or you're alert, but you're not capable to make decisions anymore, given if you had an accident or some medical things occur, you think about your wishes now, in the present, and we'll link it to a lot of different things we can discuss.
So that might not necessarily
Yeah.
be age related too. Anything could happen at any
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
That's right.
I think this
Yeah.
goes kind of hand in hand with a will,
Yeah.
right? That's
It kind of does. Yeah, it kind of does. So if you're any adult should think about it, regardless of your health status, because anyone can think about advanced care planning and making a document called a personal directive, which we can discuss, which could be the end result of advanced care planning, right? It's a good idea to think about it at any age.
So what's your background? How'd you get into doing this?
So I'm a hospital social worker.
Okay.
So I went to school at St. Mary's and I had a psychology degree. After that, I had a professor teach me about social work and that profession, that area, as a good way to kind of, continue what I wanted to do. And I always knew that I wanted to work in hospitals. So after that, I got a degree in social work and then a master's in social work, and started at the Truro Hospital, the old Colchester Regional Hospital, for about a year, and then got on full-time in Central. So with Nova Scotia Health in Halifax.
Okay.
So my first job in Halifax was working with palliative care. So I was on the palliative care team for about 5 years, working at the Victoria General and that unit. So patients that are to the point in their illness where they can't be cured and they kind of know that the end is coming relatively soon, trying to help them be comfortable. So this all kind of feeds into this work. And then I worked on a general medical floor after that for a few years. So I have a lot of years of experience working on busy hospital floors.
So you've seen firsthand how when things are planned poorly or not planned at all, how tough it can get for families and people through these situations.
That's kind of what I was like. What you said you always want to work in hospitals. What inspired you to want to always work in a hospital? Because I mean that's a tough gig, right? Like, when there's a lot of things that happen in hospitals. People are born, people die, people are sick. There's a lot of sadness that surrounds hospitals at a lot of times. So what made you wanna
that is the place you go and you meet people that could be at the worst time of their life, right?
Yeah.
When the worst things are sort of happening. I think it sort of has to do with my upbringing and things like that, and seeing different illnesses happen to certain family members. You sort of learn about that for yourself and sort of, the different types of professions of people that can help with that. And I have two older brothers, and they're both physicians. They're both surgeons. Oh, wow. So we all kind of had a bit of a mind for that. My father was a firefighter for 40 years. So we've always sort of been in helping professions, and sort of that's sort of been my angle. Cool. Trying to understand
firefighters.
things.
Like 90% of their calls are health, like accident type related. They don't even 90% of the time they're not fighting fires.
That's true. Yeah, they call them like resuscitation calls, things like that. Yeah, you're right. So especially nowadays, right, the way they build houses, less fires and more of that.
That's true too.
So that's always kind of been in my realm of possibility that I've wanted to kind of get into that. And then just doing social work school and doing placements and deciding to do it in a hospital. So I started at the Nova Scotia Rehab Hospital way back like 07 or 08, sort of doing a practicum in the hospital and seeing how they work. And social work is pretty interesting because it's kind of, when you're in a hospital, you're working in the medical model. So kind of the doctors are sort of on top and things kind of stem down.
Right.
But everyone that's on the team, nurses, doctors, social workers, all contribute to someone's total health. So it's kind of interesting to see how social workers kind of fit into that. Right. And it's like you said, like at the start, most people don't know about advanced care planning, or they don't know that a personal directive is a thing. And oftentimes social work in a hospital, people don't understand how that kind of fits in. Right. So, you're essentially aligning with the patients and finding out what's important to them and their family, and sort of what they want to get.
And what's important to the individual, because you kind of head this off really, really good. It's just making your personal medical wishes known. We all have different beliefs of what we want to do with ourselves, or with our minds or bodies. Yeah. If we go on the wayside, we have different religious beliefs, or we have different whatever. Preferred family members.
Yeah.
Right.
So exactly.
Honestly, it was only about like maybe 2.5 years ago that I actually heard the term death doula. I mean, everyone knows what a doula is.
What's a death doula do?
Well, that's the thing. So, do you know what a doula is?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, birthing doula.
Yeah.
So, death doula is the same thing, just on the way out, as
they
opposed
just
to on the way
out.
No, they kind of almost do what he's doing.
Okay.
The only difference is there's with all due respect, there's a lot less schooling involved. You're just going to get a certificate kind of thing, right?
Is this a part of advanced care planning?
Well, basically, like
no, I'm asking him.
Right. Yeah. So they're a little bit sort of on the outskirts, and that's more for when someone actually is to the point that they're nearing active death or nearing their own death or end of life. And this is more when you're still alive,
right? For
anybody to sort of think about in advance, right? Yeah. And there's certain things that could happen to you that you might. It becomes more pressing or more of an issue where, I should get something like this done. And you mentioned a will, right? So a will is for your estate and your stuff for after you die, right? As everybody knows. So this is for before you die. Yeah. And it's sort of like an insurance policy for your medical and personal care wishes if you ever needed it, like if you ever needed to use it. Because as long as you're alert and you're talking like we are right now, medical professionals will ask you what you want, you tell us.
Yeah.
But if you're in the situation where you can't speak and you can't say what you want, hopefully you've thought about it, you've discussed it with your loved ones, And that's the process of advanced care planning. It's thinking about your wishes. And it really comes down to quality of life, right?
Are you guys involved at all when it comes to like things like euthanasia?
Right. So that's called medical assistance in dying, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's a new legislation that's come in. It's been around for a bunch of years now. And that comes up every time I do a community health talk and try to educate the public on advanced care planning and making a personal directive. It's similar, but it's not the same, as you know. If you make a personal directive, we'll talk about what that is and how to do that if you want. You can, what we advise people to do is if they're interested in medical assistance in dying, if they bring that up, they have to bring it up. We're not allowed to bring that up.
Yeah.
Once they do, we suggest, if you're really passionate either way that you would want to be offered medical assistance in dying or not, put that in your personal directive, right?
Okay.
Right now, you can't go by that written in a personal directive and then that gets you made. It's not the way it works, because personal directive, you've are either unconscious or you've lost capacity. So right now, medical assistance in dying, you have to be aware of what's going on for a few different stages and consent and say, yes, I still want this, I want this.
Yeah, there's
right?
a lot of steps involved, from my understanding.
Right, but that sometimes when people are thinking about that, or if they have a terminal illness or a new diagnosis of something, and they kind of see what's might occur, or you've had experience with loved ones or people and you've seen them die and maybe in not the best way, then that for some folks that can be sort of, I want to say comfort, but just to know that if they wanted to take the steps to be able to end their life in a dignified way, they can do it. Right. But right now, the laws are such that you have to be capable to say, I still want this and this. So it's separate, but it's related. So everybody asks about that when they're doing this, which makes sense, right? You're thinking of end of life. And
that's kind of what I was thinking. Obviously, if you're thinking about, being medically, or
thinking of the people you don't want in charge of your fate, like me, I'd be like, pull the plug. He's done.
I definitely don't want him in charge of it. That's for sure. Yeah.
That's really important though to note because naming a delegate is a really important part of this, right? So some people, when we talk about personal directives, which again could be the end result of advanced care planning, you can make just a delegate directive where you just say, I want this person to advocate for my wishes if I can't speak for myself, right?
Yeah.
So you have more power if you think about it now. Instead of when you're in a medical crisis, someone's running after the ambulance and you're trying to sign a form.
Right.
You can name whoever you want, as long as they're 19 years of age or older.
Like a power of attorney.
Yeah, similar to a power of attorney. Power of attorney is for money. In a power of attorney, you're naming someone that's going to have power to pay bills for you or access your banking, right?
Yeah.
In a power of attorney, people put in a medical proxy a lot of the time that says, I want this person to be my medical delegate if I can't speak for myself. So that's okay. But a personal directive expands on that, and you can include personal care decisions, treatment options and decisions for medical and such, right? So it's very similar. But we suggest you get a personal directive too, and a power of attorney, and a will. Get all that sorted out.
And how long does a PD? I think it was a year. Has to be.
They have to know. The person you select as your delegate has had to have contact with you in the last year.
Yeah.
So that however you define that sort of contact, right?
Right.
Yeah. But other than that, you can name whoever you want that's willing to do it, right? And they're 19 years of age or older. Yeah.
Why 19 and not 18?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think there's some way that determines you're an adult in a certain capacity. That's a really good question.
Yeah, because 18, you can do everything except for drink, at least in this province kind of thing. So
they can drink in Quebec.
They can drink in Quebec and Alberta and Manitoba. I think those are the
really
three.
good point.
But I'm just curious because, if you can vote and you have all the legal rights of it as an adult, I still think the drinking age should be 18 too, because if you're an adult but you can't have a drink, it's kind of foolish to me. But that being said, I'm just interested.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And, I always direct people to lawyers and legal ends for things because I'm not that at all, right? So people look at me and think, oh, well, you'll know exactly all the legal rules and legislation, and I especially when it comes to power of attorney and wills and things like that. There's a lot of apps you can get online, and Dal has a wills app. Legalinfosociety.org is a really good website for general information. But if someone wants to do a power of attorney or a will, I say you should talk to a lawyer. Get it done in legalese, pay some money, and make sure that it's done properly. So I can just give you sort of general information what I know.
I have a theory, and I just came up with that theory right now. I think it's because they want you, because it's such a stressful situation where they pull the plug on somebody or anything like that, that you need to be able to have a drink.
Okay, good theory.
That's my theory. Someone back then thought that was like, hey, you know what? I needed a glass of whiskey. I had to make this really tough decision, and they were like, wait, you're only 18. We should make a rule.
There you go. Maybe that's it.
And the other, just to finish that point, and if you made a personal directive, you don't have to get a lawyer to do it. Meaning
Right.
you don't have to pay to make a personal directive, right? So that's what I stress every day with people.
Nice.
Well,
That's cool too.
So you don't actually have to pay for this. So this is like
So you do
this
it through
is
the-
just provided by the government, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Essentially, we've kind of mapped out how to make one. There's a Personal Directives Act through the province. So there's a legal act that states if you have a personal directive and you meet certain criteria with
How long
it,
has this been
it's
around,
legal.
like a Personal Directives Act? Has it always been around, or?
That's a really good question. So the Personal Directives Act started in April of 2011.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Yeah,
fairly
it's been around.
recent, really.
It is fairly recent. Yeah. So you would have heard terms like a living will.
Yes.
You probably heard
Yes,
that. So
yes.
this is the same basically as a living will. Just sort of the terminology is kind of updated.
Okay.
And that's not exactly right, but it's pretty much the way.
It's
So,
not quite
yeah.
a will, but it's just basically your own wishes while you're still on this earth.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of
living will is while
yeah.
you're still alive.
Yeah.
And then I guess a will is after you die, your stuff.
Where your stuff goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was reading some of the stuff like on the because it was talking about next of kin and like there's a lot of misnomers out there that people think like just like who's next of kin and that's the person who gets to like make all the decisions kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the case, right?
No,
As you were saying.
that's
So-
a really good point. So next of kin is essentially your emergency contact.
Right.
That's sort of all they are, right? Like if you go to the emergency room, something happens and no one's with you, they're like, who's your contact? Who do you want us to call to come
Right,
and help you
right.
out? That could be your next of kin. So that's just emergency contact, could be anyone.
Right.
The extra step, if you wanted them to be your delegate decision maker for healthcare, is you name them as that in your personal directive sort of thing in advance, or it's selected for you. So if you never made a personal directive and something happened to you, you weren't able to say what you want anymore, to medical people, it's kind of chosen for you out of a hierarchy. So it starts with your spouse, of course, right? And then it would go to children or a parent, all the way down to a public trustee.
Right.
So public trustee is essentially a stranger who doesn't know you from Adam.
Right.
And they're charged to kind of make these decisions for
Holy
you.
smokes.
Right? So it highlights the importance of thinking about this in advance, right?
Yeah.
You can name whoever you want. You can pick whoever, and then you can name an alternate.
So-
if that person can't do it, you pick someone else that can.
So can I go and if I just said this weekend I'm going to sit down, I'm going to figure out my PD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I go online, do that?
A PD.
Yeah,
Like that.
my P Diddy.
Yeah.
And,
P. Diddy, yeah.
well, not a good time to mention his name.
No,
He's
no.
a bit of trouble out there.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, but yeah, you can go online and you can set this up automatically, like right away.
Pretty
or-
much. There's an online app through the Legal Info Society where you can make a personal directive, and it
Yeah.
walks you through the little fields, and gives you these guiding questions, and you can fill that out. And you can make a personal directive on anything, right? You can make it on a cocktail napkin. You probably shouldn't. You should make it on something better.
It's similar to
I mean, you
wills.
could.
Wills, you
Yeah.
can do that too. I mean,
Right.
as long as you can prove that you're of sound mind, right? So
Yeah, so you sign it and you date it, and then you have a witness sign it, right?
Right.
To
Yeah.
just attest to that you are who you say you are, and they just
Yeah.
saw you sign it. And that person can't be your delegate or the spouse of your delegate. But as long as you meet those three criteria, sign it, date it, witness it, it becomes a legal document.
Right,
So
okay.
it doesn't matter what it's written on. But we created a handy template that's in this little booklet I gave you.
Here's
at the
another
end
question. So the
on how to do it.
PD, is
Yeah.
there any way that it could be
Contested?
Yes, contested. Thanks.
Personal directive, yeah.
Yeah, because you said the thing earlier about the year, right? So I'm wondering.
Right.
So if I write this down, I have it all set, and I'm okay, I'm good to go, and nothing really happens till 40 years later, and I never really looked at the darn thing, and it was now my ex-wife,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Right? Who
she's definitely.
I've heard that if you get divorced,
Yeah.
and you had named your spouse at the time as your delegate, it's null and void. After
Oh, really?
divorce.
Okay.
So
Well,
that
just a
highlights
fun
again,
example.
Yeah, make another
So,
one.
yeah.
Make a new personal directive.
So it makes it, but what
Right.
happens if you don't? Like, so I guess that's
What
where
happens
the
if you don't
alternate
is what-
kinda
yeah, is
kicks
my
in, I
question,
guess,
right?
'Cause can you name? You said
a
you
good
can
question.
name as like 10 different people, right?
Yeah, you can
In
name as many
succession.
alternates as you want. Right?
Or
So
do they have to check in once a year? Or
essentially,
yeah. So how does that work?
I don't know how you determine that. Really,
Yeah,
to tell you the
like
truth.
how do you say did you speak
What
to
does
so
that
and so
mean?
in the last
So
year?
it-
What does that mean? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it would be someone that if you were unconscious and you had named them as a delegate, they're coming out of the woodwork and they're wanting to be involved.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can't really prove that you've seen, or if you live with someone, you can kind of prove that you've seen them in the last year. But it's
Well,
just
of
right.
course.
Yeah.
But
it's-
there's not
yeah.
it's not like there's some people I haven't seen in a while. It's not like I had pictures of me holding like a newspaper with them, kind of thing. Right?
Like we can
actual
Bernie's.
photo.
You're holding them up.
photographic evidence, right?
Yeah, last
Yeah.
weekend. Look, it's dated September 19th.
Family dynamics are a wonderful thing, right? So as a hospital social worker, when someone's ill and they're in the hospital, a lot of people come out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah.
Like people, Uncle Fred you haven't seen for 5 years and comes to the hospital, he wants to help out, right? He has an opinion on how things should go. So that highlights more importance to have a directive. So everyone can kind of reference it and you write your instructions out.
Right.
Say if this happens, I want this or I don't want that. Do you know what I mean?
So all of this can be like done online, essentially. Is that what, if I understand that correctly?
Yeah, you can. There's templates you can get to do it online.
So there's templates. So then once you do it online, though, do they reach out to you, or like how do they file it so that it's on file?
It's good. Yeah, good question. So what you do after you make it, and we've created a template through Nova Scotia Health that I give people every day, and we walk them through, kind of help them to write it out, and then we've gotten permission through the hospital that I'm allowed to actually witness the document, so that we can take it for them, in my role, and upload it to the electronic medical record. So your electronic file at the hospital, the doctors can look it up on the computer, in a perfect world and find it right away and know what your wishes are. But we say when you make it, keep it on you. Make sure you have a copy of it. We have these handy green sleeves. They're just envelopes with a green backing.
Too bad you couldn't store with like your health information. Like, is there any way
Right.
they could get this in with like your MSI card?
Well, that's
or
what it is.
your-
You just said it.
Well, this is-
it's in
yeah.
there.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
It's in the central
there.
system.
Okay,
Once
it's in the
there.
It
central
can be
system.
put in the system. Yeah, anyone
Yeah.
can take it to the hospital, health records with your ID and your health card and say, upload it for me. But keep it on you. Like, keep the physical copy on your fridge.
Yeah,
so
of course, yeah.
EMTs, like, that come to your house if you had a heart attack and you're down, they're trained to look at your fridge to see if you have it there.
Really?
So that's why we
Okay.
put it in the green sleeve, so that it kind of stands out. So they're supposed to take it, look at it, and read
So this is not like a will where you're supposed to like hide it in your freezer.
No, don't
No,
do that.
no.
That's a really good point, right? Yeah, don't put it in your safe where no one can get access to it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, yeah.
So that's what people do with wills and powers of attorney. They
Yeah.
lock it up.
Right.
This you need to have it.
I
on.
wonder
needs
what
to be
percentage
visible
of
for
people
everybody.
though,
Yeah.
are putting this on their fridge right now. That's probably a very small percentage, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they used to have a thing. Well, they still have it called vial of life. So when I say that, put it on your fridge.
Yeah.
It's medications, right? That
Yeah.
are inside the fridge. This is a document that's just on it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and give a copy to your delegate, right? Make sure your delegate has one because if you're not well and they are, they can physically take the document and show it to a physician or someone that needs to know what your wishes are.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is
Kind of something like down the road. It's so cool if they integrated that into smartphones or something. Almost like you could push something on a smartphone just to see what the person
That would be cool.
needed or wanted. Right?
If that becomes an app,
just
I
to
think
pop up.
like we should get some credit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the way of the future. And
Yeah.
it is, again, you can make it online and have an app to do it, but the printed legal copy, actually physical copy,
That's what holds weight.
is really what holds weight at the end of the day. Or looking it up on your electronic medical record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
yeah.
What do you hope to see? What are the big challenges you have right now in your profession? What's
That's a
the
good
major?
question.
what major
Probably awareness is a big part. So
Awareness?
doing something like this, I think, is fantastic to reach a lot of different people that didn't know that advanced care planning was a thing or that
Yeah.
a personal directive would be something good to make. Most people don't really know about it in Nova Scotia. I think it's like
we didn't know about it.
12%
yeah.
or some crazy stat of people actually know what it is or actually have one.
Yeah.
And then if they get involved,
Realistically, it's
with our
probably the
program.
people that know about it are probably people who had to be in a bad situation.
Yep.
And
or
am I
if
right
they
to say that
experienced
it
a loved
costs-
one that had a bad thing happen to them.
That's
and
what I
they
mean,
saw
yeah,
what treatments were done to them or not. And say,
Exactly.
you know what, I should get one of these. Right?
Am I right to say it costs nothing to create one of these?
You're right. It costs
So it
nothing.
costs $0.
It costs $0. Sign it, date it,
You
witness
have
it.
your.
It's free.
Yeah, it's crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, I might go get one of these done.
I mean, we've had several guests so far.
Can I
where-
put you as me? Will you take care of me if I lose it? Like I'm
Definitely.
close. I'm pretty close. I'm on the edge now.
Well, listen, I
You can do it. I can help you. Help you make it. Yeah, for sure.
I see you as much as I see my wife, or if not more. So I think, I probably could fit that bill, actually.
Yeah.
But like, realistically, we've had some guests on here and stuff like that. Like when Erin was here and everything, and she was like, "Oh, go in, fill out a thing for." She did casting and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I went in. I did create.
Oh, did you create an acting profile?
I sure did. I get the
Have you
emails
got any
every-
roles yet?
No,
No?
I haven't. I
You
haven't
got to
applied
apply
for any.
Yeah, you got to go be the next.
The next what?
Are you an actor?
No, I am
No.
not.
No.
No.
You're trying to become one.
No, not
No?
even that. No, I was in a couple short films. That's what we talked about, like when we had Aaron on.
Yeah, you should
right
listen. There's a great one. Aaron Hennessy was
Hilarious.
With, Hennessy casting.
He cursed a lot in that
She was a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
I cursed
Okay,
a lot in
great.
that episode. Yeah, I'll be good here in this one.
Yeah, but like I went and signed up literally the next week.
Yeah.
I did, and I get the emails all the time and everything. So I will go in and I'll do this. 'Cause I think this is important stuff. Honestly,
It's not that hard to do, and people find it can be really heavy, right? Because there's certain
people
things.
don't like to think about death. That's the thing too, right?
Especially in this Western culture we have, right? We're kind of a death-denying society.
Yeah.
We want to live like that's never going to happen, but it's going to happen to all of us, right?
We had a psychic medium on. If they need help with that, we got a contact.
Can I play a game with you, Matt? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Play a game. I love games.
Okay, so say you were one of the 13% of the people that were smart enough to already have a PD.
All right.
And you're still listening to this podcast for some reason.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you, what are the 5 Ds that are important to think about when updating your PD? So 5 Ds. Like just
Probably
think-
death.
That's number 1.
Yeah.
What's the number? Second D.
Disability.
I mean, that's a good one.
Death of a loved one, not your own death. If you die, you can't really make one after.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have a point, but I gave you the full point.
I give a point.
He took half your point away.
I give him a point. He said death. Yeah,
Okay.
that's an important distinction.
Okay.
Death. Yeah.
And then, so disability isn't on here in the 5 Ds, but the second D, divorce,
Right.
right? Which
We discussed that.
I was so I was thinking
and,
like,
and
what
then,
happened to me.
but number 3, which is relevant, is diagnosis of a medical issue,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So
That's
it's like,
good.
This is if you want to update your personal directive that you've already made, theoretically.
Yeah, because if I'm perfectly
Yeah.
healthy,
Yeah.
and if I go out and find out that I have some sort of terminal illness next week, hopefully not ever, but
No.
if something like that ever happened, obviously I would update that.
yeah.
Yeah, or even an accident, right? Like, what if I
Yeah,
get hit
yeah,
by a
yeah.
bus tomorrow, God forbid?
Yeah.
And then you could be in a position where you can't say what you want. So
Exactly.
you thought about it in advance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So number 4 is decline. That's a tough one.
Like my personal decline.
Decline of your own health.
Of health, yeah, that's what I meant.
Or
Yeah.
a new diagnosis of medical condition, like similar.
And number 5 is decade. So every
them
10
away.
years or so
Every
you get
10
older,
years.
it's a good time to revisit it. And you can
Every
just
time
write
you
a new
change your
PD,
mattress.
and it absolves the old one, basically, right?
Yes, you make a new one, and the most recently dated one takes precedent over the old one.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to stay the same, right? You know, your values and wishes change over time, so you just make a new one, right?
Okay, that's good. There's a lot of there's quite a bit of information here, and so I mean,
And like these are really cool pamphlets. And like if people were listening and they wanted to get one of these, is there a link to the PDF where they could do this like examination form, like here on page 10?
Yeah, there is. I mean, you can get this booklet online. So
Booklets online.
You can just kind of Google Nova Scotia Health and Google Advanced Care Planning, and all of it kind of pops up. And there's links in the back of this booklet that actually.
worst
you
case
can type in.
scenario, they can just email the afternoon pint because we have it in our email too.
We do, and
Right, you
and
can
we'll
post
have
some
it on the link
resources
of
on
this
your-
episode.
Yeah.
No, we will. We
description.
will
Oh,
definitely
perfect.
share
Put some
stuff. Wonderful.
resources. Yeah.
No, we'll absolutely share stuff.
Yeah.
Like, would we like? We probably wouldn't do it on the episode release, but are we okay to like post that? Like, at some
I think
point,
so.
something?
I don't see why not.
I mean, I don't see why not. If it's online,
Because it's
online.
public, right? And I give these out to people in the
Yeah.
community health talk, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, it could be good. Like I would say, we would put it out. Like we won't put it on the episode release because that's something different. But we could put it the same day, kind of thing. Right? Yeah. But it's yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really cool, man. So, like, are there specific ailments where you guys would probably intervene and come to somebody with one of these pamphlets and say, "Hey, look, you know,
That's a good question.
we realize you probably never thought of this,
Right.
But
Yeah.
now you have stage, 4 cancer or
Yeah,
whatever."
are you guys walking
Yeah.
around the hospital and like approaching people on
Not
this?
yet. We think there should be advanced care planners all over the hospital, kind of thinking about things like this. But we have social workers, we have spiritual care people.
Yeah.
Doctors are trained to do goals of care discussions, they're called, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it informs this document and something called levels of intervention. So they want to know each patient's goals for their care. Like, what if things escalate? What if things get worse?
Right.
What if your heart stops working or your lungs stop working? What do you want us to do, right? Do you want us to resuscitate you?
Right.
So people hear the acronym DNR all the time, right? Do not
Yes, do not
resuscitate.
resuscitate, yeah.
So doctors need to know when you come in the hospital, if you go to the emergency room and things aren't great, they're going to want to know, like, what do you want us to do if things get worse and your heart stops, sort of thing, right? So it comes up. It comes up, and that's not necessarily the best time to be thinking of that when you're in a medical crisis, right? If my heart stopped working, would I want CPR? Would I want the shocks?
It's kind
Would
of
I
a
want all
bad
that?
time to see you then too. I get that.
Yeah, but they need to know. So
Yeah.
so if you had a delegate that has your personal directive and they're coming to hospital with you, they can kind of send them off and say, look, here, they've already talked about this. It's in their document, right? But that's the real crux of the document in a lot of ways is, what would happen if I had a heart attack and my heart stopped? What would I want to do? Yeah. Or if my lungs stopped working, would I want to be on a respirator and be intubated and be on a breathing machine? The default in the system is to treat you and do everything we can to keep you alive. And that might work for you, right? So if you didn't have a personal directive, that's what we do, of course, right? But there's a lot of, illnesses and diagnoses. Like I work with people that have COPD every day, chronic lung disease. Yeah. It's a progressive illness that doesn't get better. It gets worse over time. Yeah. And it becomes a lot riskier.
Is that super painful, COPD through time? Or how does it living with COPD, what does it feel like to someone?
Well, from what my patients have kind of told me, it can involve a lot of anxiety and sort of panic at times because the hallmark of the disease is that it's harder to breathe, right? Well, so you get in moments where you have a flare-up and you just can't catch your breath. You get short of breath and you panic.
Scary.
That's kind of
an anxiety breathlessness cycle that happens.
That's what it was described to me one time. That it's almost like you just can't quite catch your breath and you feel like you just ran a marathon all the time and because you can get tired.
Any bit of activity you do, you feel like you've run a marathon. You have to stop. So it changes your whole quality of life, right? Because we're used to just going and doing whatever we want. Like we're young, otherwise healthy men. You get up, walk to the door, and you're not stressing too hard. Yeah. Right. But people that have that chronic disease, all of a sudden one day, it seems like they've fallen off, and they do that and they can't breathe. Right? So it's really heavy on your mind, and it involves a lot of losses, loss of function. It's a lot of grieving for the way you used to be. So it's a very difficult disease psychologically, right? Yeah,
that's the thing. So you obviously work with a lot of chronic people.
That's part. That's why we offered this as part of our program, right? Because people are thinking more about that when they have chronic lung disease. You know what I mean?
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But
we kind of offer that as a service.
Anything can happen any time. There's been a couple things, kind of recently where your life changes instantly.
And what I appreciate about this pamphlet too is there's a couple different tools in here for you to assess yourself when you're doing this. And tool number 2, are some conditions worse than death? And I think we just talked about that a little bit with COPD.
Yep, really blunt, just get into it. Get into the crux of it,
can no longer get outside and you have to spend all day in the house.
Well, that's the thing. It's some people do, if you became a quadriplegic, some people do view that as worse than death.
Right.
Right? That's just some people's different opinion. Or if you're on a feeding tube or something like that or whatever. Some people view being in a coma or whatever. They're just like, you might as well just end it kind of thing, right? So
people are very passionate for whatever reason about those specific things. That's why that tool itself can be really helpful. It can be hard to do, but once you do it, you feel a bit of relief, right? Because it's all about quality of life at the end of the day. Like, what is a good quality of life for Mike or Matt? And then what circumstances might you be in where that wouldn't be a good quality of life for you? And you'd rather not be around, right? So,
exactly.
And again, it's an insurance policy. It's if you need it, you have it here. Right. And people think of it as like a gift to their loved ones because we've all heard, or maybe
it takes that burden away from them.
Takes the burden away. Yeah. So people don't want to be a burden nearing end of life. Nobody wants to be a burden to your loved ones.
If I end up having to, choose for Mike here, whether I, keep him alive,
you can decide if you want to. It's up to you. You're allowed to say.
Basically, when I can't drink beer anymore, you can just put me out to pasture.
But it's but in all honesty, if someone came to me, it's like, hey, Mike here is 94 years old, but he's he gotten something, and he had something, and he's gonna be laid up, and it's like, hey, you know what? He's 94, but he's probably not gonna wake up. We can keep him alive,
right?
I don't necessarily want that, that burden.
Right.
Me, I'd rather him. It makes my decision
I
really
would prefer
easy.
for my family to have their own plan and to respect their wishes.
Yes.
But also, if it takes the pressure off of me, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I can sit there and open this thing up and look at it and go, oh, well, it says here that, if this is check, if I'm, not able to breathe on my own, then I want out, then I don't have to worry whether, what should I do? What should I do? No, you made the decision.
You don't even have to ask the doctor that point. You just go walk in and pull the cord, right? Is that what you're saying?
So what's most important to you? Is it length of your life or is it quality of life that you're living?
Right.
Yeah.
Like from what you're saying, medical science, we can keep people alive for a long time now, right? Frankly, a lot of the time we can, but are you alert? Are you able to engage with your loved ones? Are you able to do things that you love to do that give you joy?
See, for me personally, I don't care. Keep me alive because eventually, at some point in time, they're going to download your consciousness into like some sort of matrix computer thing.
Walt
and then I'll be
Disney-
alive
right.
again.
Walt
Yeah.
Disney, I think his head's still in a fishbowl or something, isn't he?
Yeah, it's
Just
like
waiting
Mr.
for-
Burns in The Simpsons. He has his head in the fishbowl, and he still finds his old bear that he had, Bobo. Right?
Ever
So
watch
that can
Futurama?
happen,
They had like
yeah.
a show where every
You can put that in your personal
celebrity-
directive and say, if that becomes technology, then
Yeah.
keep me
No,
alive that way.
You know,
right?
honestly, they only might be able to upload your consciousness in the matrix to keep me alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Black Mirror episode about that, wasn't
There
there?
is.
There was.
Yeah,
And
that
that
was
was
really
San Junipero or
It was a
something.
show.
Yes, that was one of the best ones, isn't
Fantastic
it? That was
episode.
Yeah,
really good.
Loved it.
Altered
Oh, yeah.
Carbon, actually, it's a whole series about it. It's stacks, and they go in and
I've
out
heard
of
about that.
bodies,
I
but
haven't
they
watched it.
upload into a little chip in the back of your head. And, yeah.
So yeah, I'm team keep me alive no matter what.
Cool.
You never know what happens.
I'm team if I hurt my foot on the way out today. No.
Yeah, the one that comes up all the time, is being on a respirator, right? Like you're intubated,
Right.
you're on the machine.
Yeah.
And they go to your loved ones, we don't think they're going to recover. They can't come off it. What do you want us to do?
Right.
And then you're left going, I don't know if they wanted to stay on that as long as they could to try, or they're if they had to live like that, they just want to go. But this way, you're saying, if I'm like that and the doctors think I'm not going to recover, take me off and let me go naturally, right? So that's a gift. That could be a gift to your loved ones. That specific issue.
Definite.
Right?
So, I guess before we end, let's end on a cheery note now. Well, what did you think of the beer today? Great Road.
Yeah,
Lovely.
this is
no,
good.
it's very good.
Yeah,
I
so-
really enjoyed that.
So you're having the
This is the West Coast IPA, number 7.
Yeah, so that's the Maisel.
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 Exactly.
Yeah, that's
The
probably
Maisel.
one of my
Maisel
favorites
have this
here.
one. Yeah.
Really great IPA.
Very enjoyable.
Matt and I tried. What's it called? Party Rock.
Party Rock, which is not Great Roads. So we're at Great Roads, but this
Right.
was a guest tap. Mm-hmm. So that was their Party Rock Amber.
Yeah.
And I had the orange.
Yeah, it's
the
pretty
orange
darn
wheat,
good.
which was also pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously,
Lovely.
yeah, Great Roads. They've what did they call it? Oh, just so we're in their little brew house here, and they called it the Behind the Tanks studio.
Behind the Tank Studio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
we don't
Behind
sit on
the
the main
tanks.
floor because it's a little noisy out there when they have guests in. So we actually sit behind the brewing tanks.
Yes.
It's a really awesome space. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a nice setup for us too with the lamps. And
Yeah, he has
Yeah,
a little lamp there.
yeah,
He said he's going
nice
to put candles out
ambiance.
today.
good ambiance.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it was good. Honestly, I really, I know this is more like Nova Scotia based, obviously, because that's who your
Yeah.
employer is and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do you know, just kind of quickly, like, is this offered across the
It
country?
is, yeah. So there's different legislation in different provinces and
Yeah.
territory. They have their own sort of thing.
Yeah.
But everywhere you go, there is something.
We
Yeah.
have people who listen to the show. I mean, we have people in other countries and things like that as well. But obviously, across the country, like 80% of the people that listen to the show are in Canada.
Right.
So, this doesn't just relate just to Nova Scotia. It is relate to everyone across the country. So, I think this is a good thing. I mean, even if people wanted to, even if people from another province, they could go on there and at least maybe even check this out.
Yeah,
and
get some
see.
information. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
national groups like Speak Up is a really good one that you can go online and check
Okay.
them out
Yeah.
and learn about advanced care planning no matter where you are in the country.
Cool. Well, Andrew, yeah. So send us whatever links we should put up
Yes,
on the
please.
episode description. We'll make
For
sure
sure.
they're there for folks that have been listening to this and say, oh, gee, I should maybe look into this because I think it's really a really important thing to look at this advanced care planning and just make sure you have the right path for yourself.
And
right?
it's free.
Yeah,
It's
and
free.
it's
Why
free, right? We're not selling anything today, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about dignity, right? Like
Yeah.
it's your opportunity to kind of map out what a good death might look like for you, but it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, right? Like I had one lady tell me that she wanted to live long enough to see the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup.
She'll live forever.
So that's my joke, right? And I'm a Leafs fan, so I can laugh
So am
along with
I.
her, right? So there you go. So we wrote that in her directive, right? So
Jeez, that's
just people, it's a guide for your care if you couldn't say what you wanted. People know your personality, personal directive
Yeah.
can come out, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
you
we'll
know
end
what?
on last
Yeah.
cheers, man.
Well, you know what?
Right.
Actually, let's cheers to good health.
Cheers to good
Cheers
health.
to good health.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for
We
having
really
me. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.